We meet just a week after the leaders of the Southern African Development Community held their 46th Ordinary SADC Summit in eThekwini. At the center of discussion at that summit was the work we must collectively undertake as the 16 countries in our region to further integrate the economies of our region. Infrastructure is fundamental to the integration of our Southern African region and the African continent indeed. We need roads, bridges, rail lines, power lines, data cables, gas pipelines, and fuel pipelines that cross our region, our continent. We're beginning to envisage building pipelines, that could run for 7, 8, 10,000 kilometers. So our ambitions are at a high level. In doing all this, we know that we must mines to factories and farms to markets. We must link gas fields to industrial plants, wind farms to homes, businesses. We must also link mobile phones to data centers. We must link businesses to customers. It is for this reason that South Africa has placed infrastructure investment at the center of our drive for inclusive growth and job creation. In fact, as we are involved in the reform process, massive structural reform process, we're also reforming the way infrastructure is delivered, how it is financed, how it is conceptualized, and how it is made bankable. So infrastructure, therefore, is very much part of our reform agenda. We know that our ability to grow the economy of our country depends on whether we can secure reliable energy, sufficient water, efficient ports and railways, functioning roads, digital connectivity, and cities and towns that work. Infrastructure, therefore, and ultimately affects the daily lives of South Africa. It determines whether a household has clean water, whether a community has functioning sanitation, whether a learner has a safe and sustainable school to go to, whether a commuter can travel safely and affordably, and whether a business can rely on the basic services it needs to operate. So when we embark on the infrastructure investment drive, we are essentially clear that South Africa needs to change fundamentally, particularly the way in which infrastructure is planned, it's prepared, it's financed, and it's delivered. We did recognize that our infrastructure system was too fragmented, and that's what gave rise to the reform process around it, the delivery of infrastructure. The result was a delay, escalating costs, and too many instances, projects that did not proceed at all. We have strengthened coordination through Infrastructure Development Act and the work of Infrastructure South Africa in preparing and advancing the country's strategic infrastructure pipeline. We expect Infrastructure South Africa to ensure that our infrastructure pipeline is progressing, that projects are properly planned, and that the funding is secured, and that procurement takes place when it is supposed to. Now, the economic imperative for doing this is so clear. South Africa's level of investment remains far below what is required to achieve faster and more sustainable economic growth. the gross fixed capital formation, a country which measures investment in productive assets such as infrastructure, machinery, equipment, and productive capacity, stood at around 12% in 2025. This is less than half of the 30% investment level envisaged in the National Development Plan for 2030. Now, these figures should concern us. In fact, they should alarm us, and they should motivate us at the same time to work with greater urgency and diligence to build the infrastructure our country needs. Now, as we meet at this 6th Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, we can say with confidence that we are moving ahead at a greater pace. Estimated capital value of portfolio of our strategic and integrated projects has grown from approximately 340 billion rand in 2020 to more than 1.67 trillion rand. That is a phenomenal growth. There are 195 public, private-led infrastructure projects across priority sectors in the current portfolio. Over the last several years, 32 projects with an estimated value of approximately 48 billion have been completed. At present, 55 projects with an estimated value of more than 407 billion rand are in construction. Now, what does this tell us? It tells us that the pipeline is becoming more mature, but it also tells us where our attention must now be concentrated. We must focus on conversion. We need to convert plans into prepared projects, convert prepared projects into investments, and convert investment into construction. Most importantly, we need to convert construction into infrastructure that supports economic activity and improves the lives of our people. The role of Infrastructure SA is vital to do this. Drawing its mandate from the Infrastructure Development Act, Infrastructure SA plays a critical role in coordinating and facilitating strategic integrated projects across government. It identifies blockages and brings the relevant institution together to resolve them. One of the most important lessons we have learned is that South Africa does not suffer from a shortage of infrastructure proposals. Our constraint is that too many of these projects are not adequately prepared. There is an important difference between a project that is needed and a project that is ready. Through Infrastructure SA, 600 million rand project preparation facility, 26 projects have received and are receiving project development support. This kind of support is particularly important as we shift our focus towards municipal infrastructure delivery. Municipal infrastructure is not only where the effectiveness of the state is most directly felt and tested. It is the foundation of inclusive economic growth. Businesses cannot function without reliable municipal infrastructure. Children cannot be schooled, workers cannot get to work, and communities cannot be developed. That is why we have to address municipal infrastructure differently. Providing another grant without addressing the underlying capability of the institution is just not sufficient. Building a new asset without making provision for the way it will operate and also its maintenance going forward is not sustainable. So we should not just be dumping projects on our people and walking away. Developing long lists of projects without preparing them properly does not constitute an infrastructure pipeline. The approach we are developing places project preparation, institutional capability, financing, and asset management together. This work is beginning to bear fruit. For example, Infrastructure SA just spent about 1.8 million to prepare and package a project for the Machabeng local municipality to replace over 1,700 kilometers of water pipes. That relatively modest investment in preparation helped to unlock an 800 million rand debt financing facility from the Development Bank of South Africa. Now, through the Adopt a Municipality pilot program, Infrastructure South Africa is preparing and packaging projects to unlock 7 billion of the investment. The program is focusing on municipal trading services such as water and sanitation, electricity and energy and waste management. One of the important reforms we have pursued in recent years is to provide greater certainty and visibility around the country's infrastructure pipeline. Today, we are releasing the third edition of the construction book. This showcases projects worth more than 350 billion rand, spanning sectors such as water, sanitation, transport and logistics, energy and electricity, and municipal infrastructure. Now, the construction book provides the market with a very clear view of funded and investment-ready infrastructure projects that are expected to enter procurement over the next 12 to 18 months. Now, this edition contains over 170 projects with an estimated value of 264 billion rand. Now, to ensure that these projects move from the page on the ground, we will now publish quarterly performance reports on the construction book. Now, as South Africa, we have situated our infrastructure ambitions within the wider context of regional and continental integration. I understand that the third Leaders Forum held yesterday gave particular attention to the infrastructure required to better connect our economies and markets. Now, this aligns very well with the discussions we held last week at the SADC summit. We know that physical infrastructure alone will not deliver integration. We must continue to work in a harmonious manner in terms of our policies, our regulations, and our standards and institutional arrangements that enable infrastructure systems to operate effectively across national boundaries. That is why we are particularly encouraged by the participation of leaders, of investors, of financiers, and technical experts from across our continent. None of this work can be undertaken by government acting alone. The scale and complexity of infrastructure development demands partnership across the state, with the private sector, and with the development finance institutions and commercial lenders, and indeed with various other social formations. It requires strong cooperation between local, provincial, and local government. It also requires a capable state-owned entity or entities, as well as implementing agencies. But it also needs, unavoidably, engineers, planners, quantity surveyors, construction companies, as well as other infrastructure professionals. But it also requires universities and training institutions that develop the skills our country needs, as well as international and development partners who bring experience, expertise, as well as capital. So this symposium is important because it does bring together those different partners together around a common purpose to improve the way we plan, the way we finance, and ultimately the way we deliver infrastructure. Now, the task before us is substantial, but so too is the opportunity. If we continue to improve the quality of project preparation and strengthen the institutions responsible for delivery, we can significantly increase the pace and the scale of infrastructure investment. I hold the view that if we create greater certainty for investors and build enduring partnerships across government, business, society, which should include labor, we can create opportunities for all our people. So I would suggest that we ensure that we build and serve our nation, our region, and our continent, not only for today, but for tomorrow, but for many, many generations to come. Every generation is at the end measured but by what it has built and by what it has left behind. We are almost regaled by looking at what previous generations have built, our forebears. What they've built and left behind is in many ways what defines us as countries and as nations. So sitting here, all of us, we have a unique responsibility, not only for building for today's purposes, but also for building for tomorrow and into posterity. Not so much that we should be remembered for having done so. It is much more about how we build nations, how we even utilize those resources we have to advance the interests of our people as a whole. This is a beautiful challenge we have, and let us proceed to make sure that we do deliver on that challenge.